I found her hiding in his barn. Whoever you're running from, they won't touch you here." The morning sun had just begun to climb over the horizon, spilling soft golden light across the wide fields that stretched behind John's farmhouse. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of dew-soaked grass, mixing with the earthy smell of the barn. John had been awake for hours, as was his habit, tending to the animals and making sure everything on the farm was in order before the day truly began. There was a quiet rhythm to his mornings, the clink of the milk bucket, the soft rustle of the chickens in their coop, the low whinny of the horses waiting for their breakfast. It was the kind of quiet that brought peace, a kind of calm that only those who worked the land could truly understand. He approached the barn, his boots crunching over the frost-kissed path. The old wooden building loomed in front of him, its paint peeling at the edges, but still sturdy, a testament to years of use. The barn had always been a place of order and comfort, a shelter for animals and tools alike, but this morning there was something different. As he pushed open the large double doors with the familiar creak, he sensed it almost immediately. A subtle sound, quiet but distinct, like a soft shuffle or the scuff of a shoe against the wooden floor. John froze for a moment, his heart beating a little faster. He was used to the noises of a barn, the squeak of a door, the shuffle of animals, the wind whistling through cracks in the wood. But this sound was different. It carried a hint of human fear. Slowly he stepped inside, scanning the dimly lit interior. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the planks, casting long shadows that danced across stacks of hay and wooden crates. "Hello?" he called softly, not wanting to startle anyone or anything. The sound seemed to dissolve into the quiet, and for a moment he thought perhaps it had been his imagination. But then he heard it again. The soft, uneven breathing, coming from behind a large stack of hay bales. John approached cautiously, moving step by step, each one deliberate, so as not to make too much noise. His eyes adjusted to the light, and there, crouched in the corner, was a young woman. She looked no older than her early 20s, with tangled hair falling across her face, and clothes that were worn and slightly torn. Her eyes widened at the sight of him, filled with a mixture of fear and relief. She pressed herself further into the shadows, trying to make herself smaller, almost as if she could disappear entirely. John stopped a few feet away, raising his hands slightly in a gesture of peace. "Hey," he said gently, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not going to hurt you." He waited, giving her a moment to decide whether he could be trusted. Her eyes darted around the barn, and for a long, tense moment, she didn't speak. Finally, her voice came, soft and shaky. I didn't mean to, She trailed off, unable to finish her sentence. Her words were swallowed by the quiet of the barn, leaving only the sound of her anxious breathing. John crouched down slightly, lowering himself to her level. "It's okay," he said. "Whatever you're running from, you're safe here." "Nobody's going to touch you in this barn." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of sincerity. There was no judgment in his tone, no impatience, only concern. The young woman's eyes flickered with something like hope, though it was still mixed with fear. But she took a tentative step forward, her movements slow and cautious, as if testing the waters. John didn't move. He stayed still, letting her set the pace. When she finally came into the light, he could see more clearly the signs of her ordeal. The fatigue etched into her face, the way her shoulders were hunched as if she were carrying the weight of the world, the trembling of her hands. "You can rest here for a while," John said softly. "I'll make sure no one bothers you." He gestured toward a pile of clean hay where she could sit. Birth. She hesitated, then nodded, moving carefully toward the spot he indicated. The relief in her posture was subtle but unmistakable. She was beginning to trust that he meant what he said. John stepped back and let her settle in. He walked over to the edge of the barn and opened the door slightly to let in more sunlight. The warmth of the morning slowly filled the space, chasing away some of the shadows that had made it feel so enclosed and threatening.
He returned to her side and offered her a small cup of water he had in his pocket.
She took it with trembling hands, her eyes never leaving his. "I'm John," he said after a moment, keeping his voice calm. "Bray, what's your name?" "Emily," she whispered. The word was barely audible, but John caught it. "Emily," he repeated gently, nodding. "All right." "You're safe now, Emily. Take your time." "You don't have to say anything else until you're ready." For a few minutes they sat in silence, the only sounds the occasional creak of the barn and the distant crow of a rooster. John didn't rush her. He had learned long ago that trust had to be earned, not demanded, and this young woman had clearly been hurt enough to make trust difficult.
Finally, Emily spoke, her voice quivering. I didn't know where else to go.
I ran." She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "I thought maybe someone would find me here." John nodded slowly, understanding more than she realized. "You made the right choice," he said. "This barn, it's quiet, it's safe, and for now, it's yours."
You don't have to be afraid while you're here. The young woman let out a small, shaky sigh.
For the first time that morning, she allowed herself to lean back against the hay bales, her body relaxing just a little. John could see the tension slowly leaving her shoulders, the way her breathing became steadier. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. As the morning sun rose higher, John moved around the barn, tending to the animals and chores with practiced efficiency, all the while keeping one eye on Emily. He knew she needed space, but he also knew that safety wasn't just about keeping someone hidden. It was about providing a sense of stability, a routine, something familiar that could anchor her when everything else in her life had been chaotic. He returned a few minutes later with a small bowl of food, something simple but nourishing. Emily took it silently, her eyes still wary, but now tinged with gratitude.
Thank you, she whispered. You don't have to thank me, John replied with a gentle smile.
You just focus on resting. That's enough for now. The hours passed slowly, filled with the quiet sounds of the farm, the low murmur of the wind through the trees, the gentle clucking of the chickens, the soft steps of John as he moved about. Emily began to relax, her eyes wandering over the barn with a mixture of curiosity and relief. It was the first place in a long time where she felt she could breathe, the first place where she didn't have to constantly watch over her shoulder. John occasionally checked on her, offering small reassurances. "If you need anything, just let me know," he said.
Even if it's just a cup of water or a blanket.
Emily nodded each time, slowly beginning to trust his words. As the morning turned into afternoon, the sun now high in the sky, John suggested that she could rest while he finished some outdoor chores.
Emily watched him from her place on the hay, the tension in her body slowly easing as she saw the ordinary rhythm of farm life continue around her. There was a comfort in it, a sense of normalcy she hadn't felt in a long time. By the time John returned, the barn felt warmer, brighter, and somehow safer. Emily looked at him with a faint smile, one that was hesitant, but genuine. John returned the smile with quiet encouragement. "See," he said softly. "Nothing here will hurt you. You're safe." But for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily believed it. Even if only a little. She had found refuge in a place she had never expected, with a man she had just met but who had shown her kindness and understanding when she needed it most. Desk. And in that quiet barn, surrounded by the soft scent of hay and the distant hum of life on the farm. Something shifted. Fear still lingered, but so did hope. a fragile, delicate hope that maybe, just maybe, she had found a safe place to start healing. John watched her for a moment, standing silently by the doorway, the sunlight catching the edges of the barn in golden light. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, and he didn't know how long she would need to stay. But he knew one thing with certainty. She was safe here, at least for now. And sometimes that was enough to begin again. The sun had climbed higher now, and the barn was filled with warm light that spilled across the hay bales and tools scattered along the walls. Outside, the wind whispered softly through the trees, carrying the gentle scent of earth and growing things. Inside, Emily sat on the soft pile of hay, her hands wrapped around the bowl of food John had brought her earlier. The warmth from the meal spread through her, and for a moment she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't in a long time: safety. John leaned against the doorway, watching her quietly, but he could see the tension still lingering in her shoulders. But there was a faint relaxation in the way she held herself, a subtle shift in her breathing. It was small, but it was progress. He wanted to give her space, but he also knew that silence could sometimes feel heavy, especially when someone had been running for so long.
Emily, he began gently, if you feel ready, you can tell me what's going on.
Only if you want to. His voice was calm, patient, with no pressure, no expectation. Emily looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and relief. She hesitated, biting her lip, her fingers tracing the edge of the bowl as if it could anchor her to this safe place. Finally, she whispered, I didn't know where else to go. They were after me. I didn't know what to do. John nodded slowly, his expression serious but kind. I understand, he said. You don't have to go into details if it's too hard, but you can start small. Just tell me what you feel comfortable with. Braish. Emily took a shaky breath and began to speak, her voice low and uncertain at first. I was living with people I thought I could trust, but I realized they weren't safe. I didn't know who to turn to. Every time I tried to leave, I felt like someone was watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. I couldn't even call for help, because they would know. Her voice trembled, and she stopped, burying her face in her hands for a moment. John sat down on a nearby crate, keeping his distance but staying present. It's okay, he said softly. You're safe here now. No one can touch you. Not here. Emily lifted her head, her eyes meeting his. But how can I be sure? She asked, her voice barely audible. Breath. You can be sure, John replied steadily, because this barn is quiet, and I won't let anyone harm you. For now, this is your space. No one can follow you here without me knowing, Brick. He paused for a moment, then added, And I mean it. You can stay here as long as you need to, Emily. Nobody will hurt you while you're with me. Her lips pressed together and a single tear slipped down her cheek. She had been on the run for days, surviving on little sleep and less food, always hiding, always moving. She had not known kindness for a long time, but here it was, offered freely, without expectation. For the first time she felt a flicker of hope. I think I can trust you, she whispered. John nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Trust takes time, he said. You don't have to rush it. The barn fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the occasional sounds of the farm, the soft cluck of chickens in the coop, the low whinny of a horse, and the distant rustle of leaves in the wind. Emily continued to eat slowly, letting the warmth of the food and the calm presence of John soothe her. She could feel her body relaxing in a way it hadn't since the days before she had started running, perhaps. After a while, John spoke again. If you feel up to it, I can show you around the farm. It might help you feel more at home, and you can see that this place is safe." Emily nodded cautiously, setting the empty bowl aside. She followed John outside, stepping carefully onto the soft earth. The sun was higher now, bathing the farm in light, and Emily noticed things she had not expected to see: the vibrant green of the fields, the flowers along the fence, and the way the wind moved the branches of the old oak tree near the barn. It was peaceful here, and for the first time she felt a small measure of wonder at the world beyond her fear. John walked beside her, explaining simple things about the farm, where the animals ate, how the crops grew, the rhythm of farm life. Emily listened quietly, absorbing the information and letting the ordinary details of life ground her. She could feel herself beginning to relax further, the tension in her body loosening as she took in the calm, predictable pace of the farm. They reached the horse stable, and John introduced her to the horses. "They're gentle," he said. "You don't have to be afraid. They can sense fear, but they can also sense calm."
Just take your time.
Emily approached slowly, reaching out a tentative hand. One of the horses, a large brown mare, lowered her head and nuzzled Emily's hand. Emily smiled faintly, the first real smile she had shown since arriving at the barn. "She's nice," she said softly. And you see, she trusts you already. Sometimes animals can teach us a lot about trust. Emily spent the next hour helping John feed the animals, each small task giving her a sense of purpose and grounding. She realized how much she had missed the feeling of doing something normal, simple, and necessary. It was a stark contrast to the fear and uncertainty that had dominated her life in recent days. After the chores, John suggested they rest for a while. Emily returned to the barn, curling up on the pile of hay. She felt a sense of exhaustion, but it was the kind of tiredness that comes from relief, not fear. John sat nearby reading quietly, giving her space while remaining a protective presence. As the afternoon turned to evening, Emily began to open up more about her life, though cautiously. She spoke of her childhood, her family, and the people she had once trusted but could no longer rely on. She didn't go into painful details yet, but John listened carefully, offering empathy without prying. He understood that trust was delicate and that her story would unfold at its own pace. "Sometimes," John said gently, "when we've been hurt, it takes time to believe that people can be kind, but it's possible. You can learn to trust again, one step at a time." Emily nodded, her eyes glistening. "I want to believe that," she said softly. John smiled. "And you will, I promise." The sky outside began to turn shades of orange and pink as the sun set, painting the farm in warm, gentle colors. The barn grew cooler as the evening air slipped in through the cracks in the wooden walls. John lit a small lantern, casting a soft glow over the space. Emily watched the light flicker, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. That night, they shared a simple dinner together. John kept the conversation light, talking about farm life, the seasons, and the animals. Emily listened, occasionally asking questions, slowly letting herself relax and enjoy the simple pleasure of company and conversation. After dinner, John prepared a small area of the barn for Emily to sleep. He laid fresh blankets and a pillow on the hay, making sure it was comfortable. "You'll be warm here tonight," he said. "I'll be close by if you need anything." Emily climbed onto the makeshift bed, pulling the blankets around her. She felt the exhaustion of the day settle into her bones, but it was a comforting exhaustion. not the tense, fearful kind she had grown used to. Buzz. She closed her eyes, listening to the soft sounds of the barn, the creak of the wood, the gentle breathing of the animals, and the quiet presence of John nearby. For the first time in what felt like forever, she dreamed not of running, not of hiding, but of open fields, sunlight, and the gentle rhythm of life on the farm. The sense of safety she had found with John allowed her mind to rest, even if only temporarily, from the constant worry and anxiety that had dominated her days. The next morning she woke to the soft chirping of birds and the golden light streaming through the barn windows. She felt a quiet sense of gratitude and a fragile hope that perhaps things could be different. John was already tending to the animals, and he smiled when he saw her awake. "Good morning," he said. "Sleep well?"
Yes, she replied softly, for the first time in a long time. That's good to hear. Today we can take it slow.
You can help with some small chores if you want, or just rest. The choice is yours. Emily looked around the barn, at the soft hay, the warm light, and the gentle presence of John. For the first time she felt like she belonged somewhere, at least for now. She realized that this farm, this quiet, ordinary place, could be the beginning of something new, something safe, something hopeful. And in that moment, Emily allowed herself to believe it, that she could start over, that she could find trust again, and that for the first time in a long time she was truly safe. The next few days passed slowly on the farm, each one carrying a rhythm of quiet routine that allowed Emily to feel safe in a way she hadn't for a long time. Mornings were spent helping John with simple chores, feeding the animals, gathering eggs, and checking the fences. Afternoons were quieter, filled with the soft sounds of the farm, the wind brushing against the trees, the distant call of a cow, or the gentle humming of bees among the flowers. Emily was learning to trust again, not just in John, but in the small predictability of life itself. But even in this calm, a subtle tension lingered beneath the surface. Emily had learned the hard way that safety could be fleeting, that danger could appear without warning. Some nights she would wake, heart pounding, imagining shadows moving outside the barn or hearing the distant crunch of footsteps that weren't there. Though the farm was quiet and John was careful, her instincts refused to fully relax. One afternoon, as Emily helped John mend a section of broken fence near the edge of the field, she noticed something unusual. Small footprints, barely visible in the soft earth, led from the forested edge toward the barn. They were fresh, and their shape was unfamiliar. She froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. John noticed her hesitation and asked, "What is it?" Emily pointed toward the tracks. "I think someone might have been here," she said softly, her voice shaking slightly. "These footprints, they're new." John crouched to examine. "You're right," he said after a moment. "But don't worry, we'll make sure they don't come any closer."
He straightened up and looked at Emily with calm assurance.
"You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you while I'm around." Emily nodded, though a tight knot of fear remained in her stomach.
The tracks reminded her that danger was never far behind, even in this peaceful place. She couldn't let herself relax completely, and yet she also knew that she couldn't live in constant fear. Over the next few days, John took precautions. He reinforced the barn doors, checked the locks on the windows, and made sure that the paths around the farm were clear so he could see anyone approaching. Emily helped him, learning small ways to make the farm safer. Together they created a routine that balanced normal life with careful vigilance. During these quiet moments, Emily began to notice other things as well. The little acts of kindness that made John reliable and trustworthy. He would bring her fresh water without being asked, leave extra blankets by the hay, and always checked on her before going to sleep at night.
He never pried, never forced her to speak, but always provided gentle encouragement.
Slowly, Emily realized that these small gestures were more meaningful than words.
They were proof that someone cared, proof that she could trust again. Despite the calm and care, Emily could not entirely escape the fear that had been ingrained in her over years of running. Some evenings, when the wind picked up and the trees cast long shadows across the barn, she would hear noises that made her jump, the distant hum of a car, a twig snapping underfoot, or the rustle of the hay. Each sound made her heart race. Each shadow reminded her of the dangers she had fled. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, Emily was sitting on the hay, stitching a small tear in her jacket. John was outside, checking on the animals one last time before nightfall. Suddenly, Emily heard a faint sound from outside the barn, almost like the whisper of a footstep across the ground. She froze, her hands tightening around the needle. John returned to the barn, noticing the look of fear on her face. "What is it?" he asked gently. Emily pointed toward the barn door, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I heard something." John nodded, understanding immediately. "It's okay," he said.
We'll check. You stay here. He stepped outside, moving quietly, but with purpose.
Emily watched him go, her chest tightening with worry. She had learned to read the signs of danger over the past weeks, and her instinct screamed that someone might really be nearby. She gripped the edge of the hay tightly, her knuckles white, listening to the soft night sounds. Minutes later, John returned, his expression calm. "Nothing there," he said. "It might have been the wind or an animal. Breath. You're safe."
Emily nodded, but the tension in her body remained.
She realized that even in this safe place, the world outside could be unpredictable. But she also recognized that John was dependable, that he would protect her if the need arose, but thought offered a small comfort in the midst of uncertainty. Over the next few days, Emily continued to help around the farm, but now with a new awareness, where she watched the roads leading into the property, noted the sounds of vehicles or people, and learned to recognize the difference between ordinary noises and potential threats. John guided her gently, showing her how to remain calm while staying alert. Together, they created a sense of security that was practical, not just emotional. Emily also began to open up more about her past, though cautiously. She told John about the people she had trusted who had hurt her, the times she had tried to reach out for help but found no one there, and the constant fear that had shaped her life. John listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. His calm presence allowed her to speak without fear, and for the first time she felt that her story was heard and believed. "You've been through a lot," John said gently one evening. "But you're strong. You survived, even when it felt impossible. And you're here now, in a safe place. That matters." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and relief. She realized that while the past could not be changed, the present offered her a chance to begin again. And in John's farm, with its quiet routine and steady care, she could find a sense of normalcy and safety that she had not experienced in years. As the days passed, Emily and John developed a rhythm together. They worked side by side in the fields, fed the animals, and tended to the crops. Emily learned new skills, gaining confidence in her ability to contribute and take care of herself. But she also began to relax in small ways, smiling more easily, laughing quietly at John's gentle humor, and noticing the beauty of the world around her. But the sense of tension never fully disappeared. Emily knew that the people who had caused her harm could still be out there, watching or searching. It was a reality she could not ignore. Some nights she would wake in the darkness, heart racing,
imagining shadows moving outside the barn. John was always there to calm her, his presence a steady reassurance that she was not alone. One evening, as they were returning from the fields, Emily noticed a car parked far down the dirt road leading to the farm. It was partially hidden by trees, but its presence was unmistakable. Her pulse quickened, and she froze in place. John noticed her reaction immediately. "Emily, it's okay," he said quietly. "Stay calm. We'll handle this." He led her back to the barn and quickly secured the doors and windows, making sure there was no way anyone could enter without being noticed. Emily watched, a mix of fear and awe in her eyes, as John moved with quiet determination, taking every precaution to protect her. The car stayed for only a few minutes, then drove away, leaving Emily trembling but unharmed. She realized that even in the safety of the farm, the outside world could intrude, and she needed to remain vigilant. But she also saw that John's presence made a real difference. His calm, careful actions had protected her once again. Over the following days, Emily continued to gain confidence. She learned to read signs of potential danger, to notice small details in the environment, and to trust her instincts. John encouraged her, offering guidance without pressure, allowing her to develop her sense of awareness while still feeling safe. Through it all, Emily began to see the farm as more than just a refuge.
It became a place of growth, a place where she could rebuild her sense of self. She discovered that strength could come not only from hiding or running, but also from learning, observing, and trusting the right people.
John's steady presence was a reminder that even after fear and hardship, safety and care were possible. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Emily stood by the edge of the field watching the golden light touch the tips of the crops. She felt a mixture of fear and hope. Fear that danger could return. Hope that she had found a place where she could survive and eventually thrive. She turned to John, who stood nearby, and saw in his calm eyes a promise of protection and understanding. "You've taught me a lot," Emily said quietly. "Not just about the farm, but about trust and safety and hope." "And you've taught me too," he replied, "about courage and resilience and the importance of giving someone a chance to start over." Emily nodded, feeling a small but powerful sense of determination. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would still be moments of fear, challenges to face, and lessons to learn. But she also knew that she was no longer alone, and that made all the difference. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the farm, Emily felt a quiet sense of peace. She was aware of the world beyond the farm, aware of the dangers that still existed, but she was also aware of something more important. She had a safe place to be, someone to trust, and a chance to rebuild her life on her own terms. And in that moment, standing beside John in the fading light, Emily realized that safety, courage, and hope could coexist, even after fear.
She had found a refuge not just in the barn, but in the calm, steady presence of someone who truly cared.
And that realization gave her a strength she had not known she possessed, a quiet determination to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing she was not alone. The morning air was crisp and filled with the scent of dew on the fields. Emily woke early, the golden light of sunrise spilling across the barn. She stretched, feeling the quiet strength she had slowly built over the past weeks. For the first time in a long while, she didn't wake in fear, but in cautious hope. John was already outside, checking the fences and feeding the animals, his movements calm and deliberate. The farm felt alive with ordinary life, yet Emily knew the world beyond the fields was still uncertain. As she stepped outside, she noticed something that made her heart skip. A car parked along the edge of the farm road, partially hidden behind trees. Its presence was subtle, but her instincts told her it was out of place. She froze for a moment, memories of running and hiding flooding back. John noticed her hesitation immediately. "Emily, what is it?" he asked, walking toward her. There's a car," she said quietly, pointing. It's not like before. I think someone is looking for me.
John nodded, his expression steady but serious.
All right. Stay calm, he said.
We'll handle this.
He motioned for her to move back toward the barn. Go inside, lock the doors, and stay quiet.
I'll check it out. Emily's hands trembled as she followed his instructions, shutting the barn doors and securing the windows. She felt a surge of fear, but also a strange sense of confidence. She had learned to trust John, and that trust gave her courage she hadn't felt in years. From inside the barn, she watched John approach the car. The driver seemed unsure, lingering near the edge of the field. John remained calm, speaking in a clear voice. You're not welcome here. Leave now. The person in the car hesitated, then slowly turned and drove away. Emily exhaled, relief flooding through her. She realized that John's calm and careful approach had protected her once again. It was a reminder that courage wasn't about fighting blindly. It was about presence, preparation, and quiet strength. When John returned, he smiled gently at Emily. You're safe, he said.
They won't bother you while you're here, and if they come back, we'll handle it the same way.
Bastic. Emily nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. She had seen fear, but she had also seen strength, and she was learning to carry a little of that strength herself. Over the next few days, they worked to make the farm even safer. John reinforced the barn doors, cleared the paths around the property so anyone approaching would be visible, and checked the animals and fences more carefully. Emily helped, learning practical ways to protect herself while continuing to contribute to daily life. Together, they created a sense of safety that was both physical and emotional. Emily also began to open up more about her life. She spoke of the challenges she had faced, the people she had trusted, who had hurt her, and the fear that had driven her to run. But John listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He understood that healing took time and that trust was fragile. You've been through so much, John said gently one afternoon as they sat on the edge of the field, watching the sun cast long shadows across the crops. But look at you now. You're stronger than you realize. You survived, and you're learning to trust again. Bad damage. Emily nodded, feeling a quiet sense of pride.
I want to believe that, she whispered.
You will, John replied, one step at a time. Days turned into weeks, and Emily grew more confident. She learned to observe the world carefully, noticing small details that could signal danger. She became more involved in farm life, helping John with chores and taking responsibility for small tasks. Each day she felt a little stronger, a little braver, and a little more at home. But the past was never far behind. One late afternoon, as Emily was checking the animals near the edge of the field, she saw a figure moving in the distance. Her heart raced. She froze, fear gripping her. John noticed immediately and moved toward her. Emily, stay calm, he said softly. I've got this. He approached the figure, keeping his distance while speaking firmly. You're not welcome here. Leave immediately.
The figure paused, then retreated into the woods.
Emily exhaled slowly, realizing that John's presence and calm authority had kept her safe again. She felt a mixture of relief and gratitude, understanding that while danger existed, she had someone she could rely on. That evening, As they sat in the barn after chores, Emily reflected on how much had changed since she first arrived. She remembered the fear that had driven her to hide, the exhaustion from constant running, and the uncertainty about whom she could trust. Now, she felt a cautious hope. She had found safety, trust, and a place where she could rebuild her life. John noticed her thoughtful expression. "You're thinking," he said with a small smile. Emily nodded.
I'm thinking about how different things feel now, she said quietly.
I can rest, I can trust, I can even hope. I downwind. That's the important part, he said. You've earned it, and you'll keep earning it. One day at a time, Bay.
You're not alone anymore. Over the next few days, they continued to build this sense of safety and routine.
Emily learned to handle small emergencies, like a loose fence or a sick animal, with John guiding her. Each success, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and reminded her that she could survive and thrive even after fear. Then, one morning, Emily noticed something unusual. A package had been left near the barn, far enough away that it wasn't immediately dangerous, but close enough to suggest someone was trying to communicate or test the boundaries. Her pulse quickened as she picked it up carefully. Inside was a small note, but the words were not threatening, simply a reminder that the outside world was still present. John examined the note and nodded.
It's a warning, he said. They know where you are, but they haven't crossed the line. And they won't, because we're prepared. You're safe.
Emily looked at him, feeling a mix of fear and admiration. I believe you, she said.
I really do.
Together they decided to take even more precautions. John reinforced the barn again, cleared the perimeter, and even created hidden escape paths should the need arise. Emily learned the importance of vigilance, but also the importance of not letting fear control her. She was beginning to understand that safety was not just about hiding. It was about being prepared, being aware, and trusting those who truly cared. One evening, after a long day of chores, Emily sat outside on the edge of the field, watching the sunset over the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, and the air was calm. John joined her, carrying 2 mugs of tea.
You've come a long way,
he said gently, handing her a mug. Emily took it, smiling faintly.
I feel
different, she said. Not just safer, but stronger. I'm learning to face things instead of running. John nodded. That's the point.
Strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing up, even when you are. And you're doing that every day. As the weeks passed, the farm became a true sanctuary.
Emily learned the rhythms of life, the quiet joys of working with the animals, and the satisfaction of small accomplishments. She no longer feared every shadow or distant noise. She had found not only safety but also a sense of belonging and purpose. Then one morning, Emily and John heard the sound of distant sirens. It was a reminder that the world beyond the farm still existed, that safety could never be taken for granted. But this time, Emily did not panic. She watched as John calmly assessed the situation and guided her to the barn, reinforcing the doors and windows. She realized that she had learned resilience, preparedness, and trust. She was no longer the frightened young woman who had first appeared in the barn. The sirens faded, leaving the farm quiet once more. Paces.
Emily sat on the hay, reflecting on how far she had come.
She had faced fear, uncertainty, and danger, and survived. She had learned to trust, to rely on the guidance of someone who cared, and to believe in her own strength. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky with soft light, Emily turned to John. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything. For keeping me safe, for helping me trust again, for showing me that hope is possible." John smiled gently. Desperate. "You've done all the hard work, Emily," he said. "I just helped you see it. But remember, whoever you're running from, they can't touch you here. Bran, not anymore." Emily looked around the barn, the fields, and the animals she had come to love. She realized that she had found more than a safe place. She had found a new beginning, a place to heal, a place to grow, and a place where she could finally face life with courage and hope. That night, as Emily lay on the hay under a warm blanket, she felt a sense of peace she had not known for years. The world outside was still uncertain, but inside the barn and the quiet rhythm of the farm, she had found safety, trust, and the beginning of a new life. Psst. And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed that everything would be all right.